this video because it's come up, I think I heard 3 or 4 times within the past 2 days, the same myth. I think I made a video about this before, but I guess it's time to make another one. And there's a myth that goes around, it's on the internet, and many other places. An overwhelming number of members of the Hasidic community do not get married legally in order so that the mothers can collect benefits as single mothers. This is the claim that goes around. Now, the problems with this statement are manifold. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, really, to be serious, to be honest, because, first of all, the statement is untrue. To the point where it's just the opposite, to be honest. For example, very large Hasidic community is in Kiryas Joel, New York, very well known, and the media likes to say nasty things against them and so forth. The mainstream media, because there's a anti-conservative and anti-religious bias from the media. You see the same thing, how the media defames the president, who's probably one of the best presidents we've had. Certainly the best one we've had since Reagan. And if you skip before Reagan, I can't think of too many going back. Even maybe Eisenhower was pretty good, but until really Coolidge was probably the best that we had in the 20th century before Reagan. And tomorrow's his birthday, by the way. So what are we talking about here? We see the media makes all kinds of lies and things about the community because it's a religious community, and that there's an anti-religious bias. The same thing. There's a lot of anti-Christian bias in the media as well. But and really, for that reason, I've often said, like Rav Yaakov Emden taught, that the Orthodox Jews should really have unity with the Christian community, with right-wing Christians, against the onslaught of the left, which runs the media and the banks and all of these things, and things that people often blame, quote-unquote, the Jews, when the actuality is that it's the secular left, which has, Frankist, Sabbatean roots, heretical groups that the rabbis, excommunicated a long time ago, and they've developed into different various things over time, and you have all these various movements and so forth. But that's neither here nor there. People who hold on to the original traditions, then they defame them, they frame them they make up all kinds of lies against them, and so forth. Now, that's neither here nor there right now. That's not the point. The question is, they said the claim is that the Orthodox Jews get married just by the rabbi and not with the marriage license, and in order to commit welfare fraud. This is the claim, and the claim is that it's it's like a legal loophole, but it's actually fraud and this and that. Now, the fact of the matter is, well, first of all, it's impossible to do that. Meaning, if you have a live-in boyfriend, it doesn't matter if you have a marriage license or not. Whatever benefits are based on who lives in the house. Now, you can't say, well, he makes a lot of money, but she doesn't, but they live together. It doesn't work like that. Because they're in the same household. So you can't really get away with doing that. And it doesn't matter if you married legally or not. So that whole thing is nonsense. And in fact, generally, and let's say they are low income and they deserve to receive benefits, you're going to get more benefits being married than being single. So, really the case in most of these things. So, this claim that they can get benefits as single mothers, it doesn't work. You can't get away with it. It just doesn't work, and it's not even true. You will get more benefits in most cases being married. And I know cases where, so that's, first of all, the whole claim is silly, and then the second thing is it's not true. In the town of Monroe, you have the village of Curious Joel, which hopefully is going to split and make its own town someday, probably very soon, which will be good for everybody, mostly good for the people outside of Curious Joel, in the town of Monroe. It'll be, it'll make, and the Curious Joel is extending this to be good neighbors so they don't be a burden on the town of Monroe. Curious Joel doesn't really have what to gain by it, but the town of Monroe has. And that's part of their theology of being good neighbors and so forth. And that's the truth. Now, a number of years ago, now I think the demographics have changed even more, but at a certain point, a number of years ago, Curious Joel was about 40% of the population of the town of Monroe, even though it's about maybe 30% of the land, maybe 25% or 30% of the land mass. It was about 40% of the population. Now I think it might be closer to 50%. At the time it was 40%. And 75% of the marriage licenses being issued in the town of Monroe were coming from Curious Joel. And the town clerk said she couldn't handle the sheer volume. I don't understand why she would say that. It's revenue for the town. But what they actually wound up doing was they had to. I've been in roads, narrow area, so they just didn't have room for all the people waiting in line to get marriage licenses. So they deputized one of the clerks of the village of Monroe, even though villages don't generally give marriage licenses in the state of New York, but the village clerk is considered a deputy of the town in order to give marriage licenses. There you have it, and since that happened, there's been no drop in the number of marriage licenses in the town. People get married there. Probably a few people get married there every day, and because they actually believe in marriage. It's not like in these other places. If, let's say, someone would do that, though, let's say the first year of marriage, there are people who do that, but not for welfare fraud, but there are people who maybe the first year of marriage, they only have a religious wedding, and then a year later they get the marriage license signed or something. They'll get a marriage license, get it signed, because they don't know each other, or they don't know if they're going to stay together. Why should they have to go through the whole headache of a civil divorce? It's enough they could do a religious wedding and a religious divorce, and if they see after a year they want to stay together, then they get a marriage license. There are people who do that, especially when it's a second marriage, things like that. But again, it's not because of welfare fraud. It's just to be, to see is it going to work out. Especially a lot of these people, they just get married without really getting to know each other that well or whatever. And most of the time it works because the families look into who is divorce in these communities, and it's not a stigma. The Bible doesn't frown on it, the way that the Christian Bible does. The Gemara says it's a sad thing, but it doesn't say it's sinful. And that's it. It's in the Torah that there's such a thing as divorce. It's a normal thing. But Baruch Hashem, it doesn't happen that much. Maybe it happens now more than it used to, or whatever it is. But that's neither here nor there. But the point is that people are getting married legally. Now, the only thing is, maybe perhaps, these couples, they don't see each other from the engagement until the wedding. So it's hard to obtain the marriage license before the ceremony because they both have to be there to obtain it. So what they could do, is they could go one at a time. The groom goes first and the bride goes first, and they have it, and the rabbi can sign it on the wedding day. What a lot of folks do is maybe a day or two later, once they're already married, then they go together to the marriage license bureau and get their marriage license, and they go back to the rabbi to get it signed. And that's it. That's how it is. That's the in my community where I live, it's a summer community mostly, but we're there all year. And what a lot of folks do is the summer residents live in Brooklyn. They don't want to have to wait in line to get the marriage license, so they go to our local clerk. It could be a few months before the wedding, and they'll go, the groom by himself, the bride by herself, fill out the paperwork, get the marriage license, and they'll be legally married sometimes a few months before their actual wedding. That happens, they come to either me or they come to our senior rabbi to get the marriage license signed, people from the Hasidic community. So this whole story that they just get married by a rabbi and don't get married legally. First of all, the rabbi's marriage is legal. It's recognized by the state as long as you get a marriage license first, and the rabbi signs it. That's how it is. Just like any minister, any priest, any pastor, any imam. Or in some places you be ordained by Universal Life Church. And just online, and you get to sign a marriage license, according to some municipalities, probably most in America. And that's it, that's the whole story. But like I said, that doesn't mean that people aren't getting married. Some people do and some people don't, but doing it for the sake of fraud, that doesn't work. You can't get away with it, and it doesn't help. You get more benefits being married, generally, especially if you have kids or whatever. You're gonna get more benefits unless you make too much money, in which case you shouldn't be collecting welfare anyway. Most of the people who I know who are on welfare, they report every penny that comes in, and just legally, Medicaid, the threshold now, it's very high. You could be making, a family of 7 or 8 could be making like $90,000 and still be eligible for Medicaid. So it's that's just the law. Maybe if the law changes, whatever, but it's 100% legal. It's nothing illegal about that. That's not fraud. When you have, there's allegations that people who are millionaires and frauding, if it's true, they belong to go to jail. I don't know if we have to rush into judgment to say whether it's true or not. It's not our job to judge other people. Like they say, judge not lest you be judged. It's that's an idea like, the Baal Shem Tov, it's quoted from Rabbi Nachman, quotes his Zayda, the Baal Shem Tov, that when King David was approached by Nathan about the story of Bathsheba, even though the sages say by the letter of the law he did nothing wrong. We can talk about that another time. I've spoken about it before, but he tells him said this to David, and David accepts it with humility and repentance. It's tremendous. So anyway, the Baal Shem Tov says, Rabbi Nachman brings from the Baal Shem Tov that if someone, like when we go to the next world, how are we going to be judged? We're going to be presented with a story, and the angels or God himself or whatever are going to ask us, how do you judge this case? Putting you on a jury now, I could imagine to make a Twilight Zone episode like this. People, they don't know how to get here, and they wind up in a jury, and they wind up with whatever they say to the guilty party, to the person, the defendant, whatever judgment they pass on the defendant, that would be the judgment they would get. I don't know if they ever made a Twilight Zone like that, but that would be interesting. Twilight Zone type of thing. At the end they find out, that whoever they judge, the other person, that's how they're being judged. And so that's what it means. Judge not lest ye be judged, meaning that the exact act that you're doing when you're casting judgment on someone else, it's not only in heaven in the afterlife. Here on earth, we're being judged. And so if you can try to find some positive thing to say about someone and try to judge someone favorably, you're bringing favor upon yourself. You're bringing blessing upon yourself from God. If you can be humble enough to judge people favorably, it's going to make you. It's going to make you much happier. It's going to make your life much better. We see all these people. They're all self-righteous, and I care about them. That's why I'm saying this. I don't want to see them condemning themselves. There's so much self-righteousness and snap judgment about this case in Lakewood, and not only that, but they extend it to everybody. Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? People are so quick to condemn and to judge, and it's not our job to do that. It's our job to look at ourselves and see, are what we doing right? And let's try to better ourselves and better our peers. And if we see someone doing something wrong, we can correct them in a friendly way, in a loving way, because we care about them. And the fact of the matter, someone said, well, there's all these asifas, there's all these, gatherings to, about sneers and about the internet, and about smartphones and all these things. And where's the asifas about Dina Malchus Adina? I said, there were plenty of them, business symposiums and so forth, where Rebbes and Rabbonim came and spoke. They spoke in Yiddish, they spoke in English. It's just the media doesn't highlight them. Someone said, how come I didn't hear, how come I never saw this in Yeshiva World News and this and that? So then I showed them the links of the coverage of these asifas. And people just want, I mean, you have to look at it, you have to fulfill the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. It's true that Teichacha is part of the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael, 100%. If you can correct someone who's doing something wrong and save them from sinning, you're obligated to do so. If you think it's going to make a difference, it's the right thing to do, and you should, but it can't be in a self-righteous way. It has to be with humility, it has to be with fairness, and we're not here to judge everybody else. We have to be merciful. We have to judge people favorably, because whatever judgment we cast on the next person, that's what we're finding on ourselves. We should try to find the other side of the story as much as it's possible. this snap judgment, and it's sad because I see it from many of my friends, from the modern Orthodox community, and I love them. They're my brothers and sisters in faith and in practice, and this is why I'm saying this. The mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael doesn't end because someone did something wrong, someone was weak, somebody did an Aveira, and who knows if they did it or not. That's the other thing. The first thing, do we know is it true? Just because they got arrested doesn't mean it's necessarily true. And there are many things that, I don't know all the details of this case. What I heard is that there was a question of who owned a business, and they were paying someone a certain amount. The claim is that someone else was the owner. The beneficiary was actually the owner of the business, and they were trying to hide that someone else owned it. But perhaps it's possible that they have legitimate business expenses. If somebody, let's say, when you do your taxes, if somebody owns their own business and they have to travel, they're not going to the same office every day. They're traveling all different places. They could write off their mileage, for example. And there's other business expenses that are legal to be written off when you do your taxes. So you have an accountant to figure these things out. I don't have an accountant, but I don't make enough money that I could afford one, whatever, that I need one. But you go to an accountant and you figure out what the business expenses are, and then you pay yourself a salary from your business. Everybody does that. Now, if in order to make this money, you need to spend this money, and it's a real business expense, there's what to say that no crime was committed. The thing is, if these people are dipping into their business and things like that, that's and they're using the business expenses for private things like that. So then you have what to prosecute, but these things have to be looked at, and that's why you have a lawyer to figure out. It's not our job to judge right away. And even let's say these people are guilty, how does that affect your life? Whether these people are guilty or not, you're much better off judging them favorably and bringing good judgment upon yourself than you would be if you're just trying to show, oh look, I'm, that's what the Satan is. Don't turn yourself into a Satan. Satan, that's satanic in the actual meaning of the word. What does it mean to be satanic? Is to be a prosecutor. The Satan is the prosecuting attorney in heaven. That's his job. So someone who seeks to prosecute other people and to find fault in other people is satanic in the actual root meaning of the word. That's not the right way to be. I don't have to explain why it's wrong to be satanic. So let's try to be positive, to judge people favorably, follow the example of Rabbi Yitzchak Berdichever. And like Samarov points out, there's a lot of different kanois in the Kedushas Levi. The Berdichever wasn't just a total hippie who said everything's okay, you're okay, I'm okay. That's not what it means. But try to find a way to be done the kapschus. Try to find a way to say something positive, to judge people favorably. It's going to be good for your life. It's going to be good for everybody. You don't gain anything. You're not gaining anything by going and playing a Satan and being satanic against other people. You're not gaining anything doing this. So and you leave it to the courts, and the courts might get it wrong too. They sometimes do. sometimes they get it right better than they think, and sometimes they get it wrong. It happens. I was a chaplain in a federal prison. I saw, certain people were railroaded by the system. Certain people deserved maybe more than they got, but they made a plea bargain. You had someone who kills his wife and he gets 19 years, and there's somebody who was framed by his ex-wife for a horrible, disgusting thing that she herself was doing, and all the kids said that she was the one who was guilty and not their father. The father gets 30 years in prison. So go figure. This is there are certain times when certain things don't go justly. We have to hope that things go the right way, and hope that God has mercy. I mean, God's justice is perfect. That's it. But don't rush to judgment. Don't be satanic. Let's judge people favorably. Let's try to be positive. Let's try to love each other. Let's do the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your fellow like yourself. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Do unto others as you would want done to you, and also even in matters of judgment like that. And also let's try to bring out the truth when things are really lies, like this story with the these claims that people don't get married legally, nonsense like that have no truth to them. We have to call them out. There's we can't sit still while a lie like that is being told. All right. Well, God bless you. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you later. And be happy.